Welcome to Quantum Tech Investment and Applications, the podcast. I'm your host, Bob Sutor. This episode is produced by Katie Sutor and brought to you by our company, Sutor Group Intelligence and Advisory. This is episode 2025-12-02. That is, we recorded it on Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. And the topic for today is Summer 2026 Quantum Internships, Advice for Students and Hirers. Why this topic? Today's Tuesday. A couple of days ago on Sunday, I put up a Substack post called Summer 2026 Quantum Opportunities for Students. And let me say it did very well. It did well on LinkedIn, got me a whole lot of new followers, but also did very well on Substack itself because this is an important topic. There are many students out there that are interested in quantum technologies, would like summer jobs, and they need to start looking right now. I'm going to take you through first what the post actually said, but be aware that there are links in the Substack post. You can find it by going to Dr. Bob Sutor, Dr. Bob, sutor.substack.com, and you'll see it there. And there are links there. So for those of you who are just listening to this, that's fine. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube or on Spotify, you'll see a little bit more, but it's not required. Do go to that post for any of the information that are links. So part one is to go over a little bit of what we talked about in the post. Part two is going to be advice for students who want these internships. And then part three here today is going to be advice for people who are hiring students for these internships. So let's start in on that post. It was in two parts. Part one was called Listings of Opportunities. Now, there have been several organizations who have already put together some collections of job offerings for internships. The Chicago Quantum Exchange does this every year. The MIT Society of Physics Students, Quantum Economic Development Consortium, the Sydney Quantum Academy. In fact, even the U.S. Department of Energy has science undergraduate laboratory internships at places like Oak Ridge and Oregon, things like this. There are a few other services like My Ivory Tower, Quantum Jobs USA, QubisOK.com that have listings as well. So start there. Those are already collected together. They have companies. Many of them have put in what they will have available. But be a little careful. When you look at a listing for an internship, make sure it's for 2026. I did note on some of these that they were old. They were for this last summer, and occasionally they were for last year. In fact, really stare at what it is. Now, I will say that if they've offered in the past, maybe they'll offer it in the future. So bear that in mind, but don't apply for a job that's in the past. Now, the second part of the posting was a list of individual organizations that I know of through my research have at least offered quantum internships in the past, or at least deep tech ones that are related to quantum. Photonics, for example, might not say quantum, but it might be there. So who offers these internships? Individual companies, national laboratories, universities, and even some other types of organizations may have these. Now, for the links I give, some of them may go just to careers pages or jobs pages, and you'll have to search explicitly for intern on those pages. Now, they might not all have the internship programs ready yet for 2026. In some cases, they wait until the beginning of the year. I know some companies stabilize their budget for the next year in January and February, so that might affect what they offer for internships. So you're going to have to start this process, but then keep checking back to see if companies have them, or at least the companies you're interested in doing. I will go, and as I find more of these or have a little bit more detailed information, I'll update that original post. And in fact, I've done that a couple of times already in the last 2 days. Those are the individual organizations, and you can take a look at them. Now, let's start with the advice for students, the advice for people who are looking for this. I'm primarily here thinking about undergraduates or graduate students. I have gotten some questions about high schoolers. It can be very difficult, if not impossible, in some places in some countries to hire minors. That is somebody who's 18, who's not quite 18 yet for these positions. They may just not be offered, but there may be other programs, especially universities for high school students. You're just going to have to search for them. I did a quick search on Google the other day, and probably about half a dozen popped up. Now, they might not be where you live, but check it out. But remember, really what I'm talking about is undergraduate or graduate students. So the number one rule, if you don't listen to anything else, is apply early. There are only so many internship positions. Some companies may have one or two or three. Some big companies may have a couple of dozen, but there are hundreds and sometimes thousands of students who want these roles. And if I am a company who is offering internships and I get some really great applications that are coming in very early, I may grab them because I don't want my competitors to get these interns. I want them for myself. I get three fantastic applications from students who may be at top schools, who have great experience and things like this. I'm going to grab them, and my internship program is closed. So apply early. Next, be specific in what you're interested. Don't just say, I like quantum technologies, hardware and software. I want to learn more. I want to work in a company, blah, 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 very generic and things like this. Try to be very specific. Understand what this is. This isn't an opportunity to learn the most basic things about quantum technologies, quantum computing in particular. You got to learn a little bit about these subjects before you apply. All right. Next, think of how you will add value to the organization at which you might intern. What will you give to them? Now, they certainly want to bring you in. They would like you to do great stuff with them and all these sorts of things. I'm sure they're wonderful people. But the more you can say, hey, if I am working with you, I can help accelerate this. I have some knowledge over here. I can work as a technician while I learn more about the science and things like this. Know the work done by the company or organization. Find out who works there. Look at what papers they've published on Archive and Nature or other journals and things like this. They're not hard to find. If you go to the companies, they have listings of who's on the team, right? Who's the CTO? Who's the chief science officer? Who are the academic advisors? Grab their names, do some searches, read some of the papers, or at least get an idea. Don't go saying, hey, I love working on quantum machine learning, and the company totally does quantum hardware. I don't have a mismatch just because you're applying broadly. Don't just spam companies, right? Try to do it with a little bit more precision. Next, some people use this phrase, hey, I'm a quantum enthusiast. I don't quite know what that means, whether it means you're like a super fan, right? Companies aren't looking for super fans. They're looking for pre-professionals. They're looking for people who are interested in the science or the technology or the engineering and who may eventually enter the field and enter the industry, right? I wouldn't necessarily phrase it yourself as an enthusiast. Use some other words to describe your interest in and why they should care about you. Now, be prepared to have some recommendations from professors or industry people who know you, who actually you've taken their classes, you did well in their classes, maybe you've worked in their labs. Somehow they can vet that you are a good, smart, hardworking person, and you would be a joy for anyone who wanted to hire you as an intern. Don't go up to random strangers and say, hey, can you look at my work? Can you write me a recommendation? That really doesn't do anything. People know immediately. And if they follow up on it, it's not going to look really good for you. Okay. Now, do understand the internships, as I've already said, but they're very competitive, right? Consider alternative technical areas. It may not work out, particularly if it's your first one, that you would get a quantum internship. Maybe you can get an AI one, or if you're in other areas of physics or engineering, you can get something there. Importance is getting some experience in industry, right? To learn more about what's going on. So maybe you don't get that quantum internship this next summer, but possibly you get it the next summer. And oh, by the way, if you did such a fantastic job in the 2026 internship, they'll give you great recommendations, which will make it better, right? You get the idea. Now, understand that internships can be tried before you buy opportunities for companies. That is, they may be looking at their interns and saying, hey, this is somebody who I may want to hire at some point, right? So behave that way. Behave as a professional, right? Show that you are hardworking, that you're curious, right? You fit in well with the team, all of these types of things. The next bit of advice is a little bit more personal in terms of your career development, but it's use the opportunity to use the opportunity to learn what you like and dislike. You may think you are a quantum hardware person, and at the end of the summer, you say, that's okay. I love quantum software, or I love machine learning, or things like this. It's perfectly okay. That's the point. This is why you take classes. This is why you talk to people. It's okay to move a little bit around what you're doing here and what you want to focus on. I've done that in my career. I was pre-med before really starting college. And within a couple of years, I switched to mathematics. I was very nervous that my mother somehow would be disappointed in me that I wasn't pre-med. And her response when I told her was that she said that, Bob, I didn't think you'd be a very good doctor anyway. So all that guilt I carried about it wasn't really real. So use the opportunity to learn what you like and what you dislike. Now, let's turn to hirers. Most large tech companies have established intern programs. I, in fact, was a summer intern, summer student, we called them, in, in IBM a long, long time ago. And they know how to do intern programs. That's just Microsoft and Dell and NVIDIA and all these big companies. Now, they may vary where they offer the internships. Budgets may vary from year to year, but they know how to do this, right? If they post the jobs, those may be the only jobs, right? You're not necessarily in these big companies going to find somebody who just wants to hire you as an intern. There's a formal process to this. So bear that in mind, right? So for the hirers, if you have a great program, you probably know everything I'm about to talk about. So I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to all those other people. So the first thing is pay your interns. And that's the end of discussion. I've gotten into arguments with people saying, oh, I don't want to pay my interns because, oh, think of all the great experience and knowledge they will gain, and they'll get this on their resume and things like this. Forget it. Pay your interns. If people are working for you, they're your employees, they should get paid. That's the way it works. All right. It's the same old story. People say, hey, to a musician, hey, will you come and play at my party? I'm not going to pay you, but you'll get great exposure and all this future stuff. Forget it. They have to eat. All right. So people who do things for you should get paid, particularly interns. Now, also consider providing other support like lodging and food while the internship program is going on, as well as their transportation costs for getting to and from whatever the site is, if it's not a virtual internship. Remind your employees of the organizational code of conduct. Most companies do this at least every year, but you've got these people in the early stages of their career coming in, right? Your employees have to behave extremely well as you would expect them. And you know exactly what I'm talking about here, right? You want to be a model employee for these interns to see how you operate, and maybe someday will work for you. Just as the students should start to apply early, you should post your internship positions as soon as possible. You want to grab the best people, grab them as soon as they are available. So put them out there like now. Sometimes I do understand that, again, budgets may not get set for a little while. As quickly as you can, go ahead and do this. Now, don't just have the interns show up and say, oh, we'll figure out what you'll do for the next 8 or 12 weeks. Pre-develop the plan of work the entire duration of the internship program. Understand who they'll be working with whom they will be working, okay, what they'll be doing. Give your interns broad exposure to what your organization does and how it works. Don't just keep them in a little niche, a little technical niche here. This is a chance for students who maybe know colleges, universities, to see how a business operates. Show them the attorneys, the marketing department, any of these other things, the salespeople. Let them understand how a company actually works, how revenue is generated from the great work that they're doing. The end of the program, have the interns give presentations on what they're doing, right? Explain what was the problem they were working on, what their assumptions were, what the attack plan was, and what sort of progress they made, what sort of future work might be required. It's a great opportunity for them to collect their thoughts together. They can work with people on your staff in putting this together. And it's also just very good experience in giving a professional presentation, which is very different from something you might just give in a college class. So it's good career education, shall we say. Now, this one's a little bit pointed, such as the one about paying them. Do not retract an internship offer because you suddenly have budget problems. Interns don't cost you a fortune, right? Don't screw up somebody's life, somebody's summer, because you decide in May you have some budget problems. Find the budget, bring them in, get through the 8 or 12 weeks, get on with your life. Okay? Don't use interns as pawns regarding this. Now, if you're going out of business, okay, that's a reason to retract an offer. That makes sense. But it better be about as serious as that. Now, on the positive side, for the graduating interns, that is maybe undergraduates who are graduating from college or university, people getting their master's degrees, people getting their PhD degrees, consider making them the job offers. Even if it's the end of the summer and they won't be available to the next April, May, or June, you can make them that job offer. And once again, think about workforce and the best people and bringing them into your company and then stay in touch with them, right? Now, you should also stay in touch with your best interns who aren't graduating because you might want them to come back the following year. If somebody was so fantastic, why wouldn't you consider bringing them back? All right. Maybe you're going to enlarge your program a little bit more for the very best of the 2026 interns to come back the following year. Yeah, I know you could say, I want to see who else is available. Okay, but this is at least something to consider doing. It often works out very well. So that's it for the advice, if you will. This podcast is a companion to what we do on Substack. Again, the link is Dr. Bob Sutor, D-R-B-O-B, sutor.substack.com. We list these podcast episodes. We have quantum market landscape updates, commentary, earnings reports, all sorts of things. You can subscribe for free, though there are some extra benefits for paid subscribers. This last one about the internship program, that was completely free, as well as daily updates. So pretty much every weekday, we put out a daily quantum update. We list stock prices. We list the news that's happened about the last 24 hours or so. We list the conferences that are taking place in the next 3 or 4 weeks. So it's a good way to keep abreast of the industry. We curate these. We try to avoid duplication when we can. But at least every morning you can scan this and you can say, okay, that's what's going on. This is who got funding. This is what's happening in this government. These are the partnerships and things like this. It's completely free. Please do subscribe. Now, I always put in a plug for my book. It's Dancing with Qubits, second edition. This takes you from the math you might have learned or forgotten from high school and college, all the way through what you need for Shor's algorithm. In the second edition, I added some new material on NISQ algorithms, as well as quantum machine learning, and also reworked several of the earlier chapters and sections to be a little bit more clear. So it's more of a mathematical approach. It's not if you're very physically oriented, but it brings you all the way through the math, the probability, the linear algebra, the complex numbers, and so forth that you will need to understand this and to understand the core algorithms. Now, this podcast is available for sponsorships by companies, organizations, and conferences. Contact Katie Sutor, our producer, at Katie Sutor, Katie Sutor at sutor.com for details, and we can work something out. And then finally, the legal stuff. You can visit the copyright notices, disclosures, disclaimers, and licenses page on the Sutor Group website at sutor.com. And it has all that sort of stuff that an attorney would love us to include about the sorts of things we say here in the podcast, as well as we write on Substack.